I was asked by someone who knows me well to discuss the assassination of JFK just now. Wasn't really my intention, but maybe there's a reason. I'll share my thoughts. Although I somewhat doubt that I will ever have an influence on the seasoned gentlemen and women, Lisa Pease and her friends, who have professionally studied events in Dealey Plaza for a very long time, with my views. I do remember what happened, and I had faith in JFK. I'm one of those people who lost faith over JFK. And of course, I've read people who are very skeptical of him, but I also have read him. In 1959, for example, he says we were all lied to about Indochina by advisors. It's in a book called Strategy of Peace. What I have observed over the time since it happened, like everyone else, the disappointment, I think that's the big word in the USA, have been intervals where the dominant perception of what happened has had stages where the tone of our understanding of what happened changed. For example, early on, people who suspected Oswald had either been framed or was playing a double agent role and was sort of coaxed into position without his awareness and sprung into a role that he was not expecting. Were people who knew the mainstream narrative was something that was accepted because it made people feel like there was an explanation. Even if the explanation was wrong, it was good enough. And the people who didn't want to accept it knew that they were up against 50 spy genres, sci-fi, Twilight Zone sort of stories. And had to contend with the marginalization of their views to that sort of thinking. And consignment to UFO document stuff. Some of them said, well, we'll just go out and put UFO into perspective too, then. People who want to know what happened can be a very cantankerous lot. And they very definitely turned up some promising proofs And I admire the contribution that John Pease has made, for example, to our understanding of the Payne family, where Oswald's rifle was in the garage, and their relationship to the United Fruit Corporation, because United Fruit was involved in coup d'etat. And it seems to me there's an explanation there, based on the evidence. Then another period emerges. We'll call the first period the skeptical period. The second period we'll call the research period, where they went over and fleshed out all of the details, got out their stopwatches to challenge the estimations of timing and so forth. Then a third period would be Oliver Stone's movie. After a lot of time went by, he introduced our society to what was a true story. Whether or not Jim Garrison, the district attorney of New Orleans, had everything right, it is a true story. He really did try to find out what happened and come across the strange details that the film so clearly recommends we know all about, as he did, as well as the conflicting forces that came down from media attempting to put a stop to his investigation and humiliating him. Of course, debates about Jim Garrison survived the movie, which was promoted sometimes as a vindication of Jim Garrison. The better of his book, A Heritage of Stone, was not reprinted. There was a troubling institutional theme to people like Garrison, that it was the Central Intelligence Agency. So, along with Oliver Stone's mission of challenging the media representation, the media apparatus, while rehabilitating Jim Garrison, this was long overdue. We saw the continuation of the skepticism theme. A fourth consideration, of course, was the research I did in semiotics that makes it seem planned by Hollywood, which involves the script I found and the conflict I got into with the British. Partly because of Oswald Mosley, a namesake, I believe. But a fifth, and I hope maybe final, characteristic of the investigations has about it. I have a book which was written by a Christian extremist who believed in the supernatural, that the devil killed JFK, so to speak, sort of like Carrie's mother in the Stephen King film or the Stephen King book. Who believes it's, the mother is the devil or something. It's like that old story of the Glock, I guess it's called, the German bell that could freeze time, a secret conspiracy of the Germans during World War II, a mystical physics somehow came out of a crystal ball and visited itself on the President of the United States. I think there's some truth to all of that. I think the thinking of the assassins was fanatical. And a great deal of the hardship that comes with accepting the loss of our intellectual leadership comes from having to deal with the element of Christian fanaticism that came from the pornographic industry, which is where Jack Ruby was, along with the Dallas police. The idea that Kennedy was somehow spiritually a test tube embryo. In the minds of some Roman Catholic mad doctors in a laboratory from a Hollywood film with Boris Karloff. And one of the reasons I think it's so tragic is that so many people have come to buy into the idea that might makes right. That Kennedy was our president until a superior, perhaps supernatural force proved itself stronger and more capable by killing him and taking control. This theme comes echoing down through disputes I had for years with the law school at the University of Pittsburgh. I became sort of derisive, calling it the nature of reality stuff. And when the Fernhollow Bridge collapsed, I called it the nature of reality proof by the Fernhollow Bridge gang at the University of Pittsburgh, to make light of it. I realize that there are people who have come of age when it comes to American sensibilities. I have long said that democracy is not at risk just because America is falling. Other people around the world will take up where we were forced to leave off. I don't think that human sensibility is at risk. But I can't join hands with people who put down JFK because he was pretty solid when it came to knowing what it was that we are up against. I don't think that his heart was in any way in the wrong place just because he was a happy element of the American aristocracy. It's easy to see, once you are acquainted with the semiotic details of the Rat Pack of Sinatra, Lee Marvin, and Reagan, the manner in which production forces pulled strings and deprived us of reasoning, diplomatic, outgoing, healthy, young, and humane leadership. I do sometimes fault Kennedy. He's the one who put LBJ as his successor in the event that something happened, which shows that he failed to take seriously the prospect that that could happen. And we all have been punished very severely by the consequences of that political compromise on his part. But as a Kennedy kid, I also have to face the fact that I'm disregarded as someone who's a dinosaur of the American project. Maybe that can help somebody sort it out.